Welcome everyone to Widget World Wednesday. This is March 11th, 2026, and we're very excited that you're all here. It's always fun to, I'm muting some people here while we start. Always fun to get together, and this month in particular is one of our educational sharing months. Next month, will be April 8th. That will be a Q&A, just a general Q&A. So bring your questions, bring your comments. We'll have some discussion. I always think maybe there's not a whole lot to talk about, but when we all get together, generally there always magically is stuff to talk about, and worthwhile tips and tricks are shared. So make plans to come next month, April 8th. So today we're going to be talking about concealed hem grips. And this is what I would call an advanced session. And we're going to talk through concealed hem grips. Chris, do you want to go to the agenda? So I'm going to share the Centurion method with you. I have a video from Lynn Scott that she shared with us, and she's on the call as well, so she can field some questions that people have. But she's got a little video that she sent me about how she does a concealed grip. And then we've got Mary Dwan has an interesting way of doing a concealed grip as well. She sent a series of photos. She was going to be on the call. We are still expecting her to be on the call. And she's got a sample that she can show as well. Hers is a little bit more involved, so I'm not really going to be able to talk too much about it. So hopefully she does pop on in time towards the end, and she can share her method. And then if anyone else has other discussions, you're going to be welcome to share your methods for doing a concealed hem grip. And maybe just give you some ideas about what can be done differently from our flat shade construction. So, okay, we can move on. Okay, so this is a video. This is a 13-minute video with sound, and this is the Centurion method. When making a Roman shade with the Centurion Roman Shade widget kit, it's important to have some stiffener in the hem area where you're going to be pushing and pulling up the shade from. Normally, this stiffener has the weight bar in it as well, and it's important that where your cords and brass rings terminate is where the stiffener begins. In our instructions for a basic flat Roman shade, we show you how to put the stiffener in the bottom hem and the hem grip directly bottom center of your shade. But most often when I fabricate shades, I don't really want that hem grip to be visible. So, Chris, I think you stopped it. This is what we call a concealed hem grip. And to figure out the concealed hem grip, you're going to cut your lining fabric, the finished length, plus 2 inches, so it wraps onto the board. So this edge right here represents the finished length of our shade. So for this instruction, where all the folds are going to be flush with the bottom hem, I added 10 inches of face fabric onto the length. So the formula for the face fabric is going to be 6 inches to wrap the board. Then I'm going to add my finished length. Then I'm going to add 10 inches, which is going to be for my concealed hem right here. So the 10 inches here, and this is the finished length of the shade. Lining stops at the finished length of the shade. So because this is a finished length of the shade, I can fold this up. This is 4 inches folded up because my hem stiffener would normally be in this section here, but I'm going to do a concealed hem grip. So I'm not going to put the hem stiffener Skirtex in this section, but I'm still going to fold it up 4 inches, and I'm going to fold the fabric back on itself. So this now measures 6 inches because of the 4 inches turned up. So with the 6 inches, now I've taken the Skirtex and I've actually pressed it. It was 4 inches piece of Skirtex, which comes in your kit. I've pressed it, turned it in half. So now it's 2 inches. This is my 6 inches. And I'm going to fold that up completely. At this point, I haven't stitched down my side hems yet. When I fold all this up and have the hem stiffener in here, this is now the finished length of my shade. Now at this point, I would stitch the side seams. I'm going to stitch across this top edge here. And when I do stitch it, I'm going to make sure that I'm catching this layer here, this fold here, and I'm going to catch just the lining fabric. I'm not going to take my thread all the way through to the face, but I'm going to sort of stitch up and down in a sort of a zigzag pattern, catching all 3 layers, this fold here, and the lining fabric. When I've got that stitched in, then I can take my weight bar. This is 3/4 inch weight bar by 1/8 inch length. It's been cut just narrower than the width of my shade. It doesn't have to be the full length. I can slide this in. And then I can slide the weight bar on. So I've already stitched this down. I can put the weight bar on, and this, the weight bar is in here and the hem grip is here. I put the hem grip on, and the hem grip will grab just the lip here of the weight bar. There's a little groove in the hem grip, and that'll secure right to the top of the weight bar. So I've stitched it all up and around on the sides. You can blind stitch the sides here that are open and down here. I like to leave one edge open because sometimes when I've made my shade, I find that I need to put in a fiberglass rib down in this lower hem if it's a fabric that has a tendency to wave. Okay, so once this is all stitched together, so what happens with this is you've got your hem grip here. This is the bottom edge of your shade, and when it pleats up, all the folds are going to stack right on top of each other. Your hem grip is up about 2 inches up under your finished length of your shade. So that's the formula for getting a shade that has a flush bottom edge. You don't see a hem grip because, again, your hem grip is going to be 2 inches up on this side. So another formula that we're going to give you is if you want to do a shade with a drop hem. If you're using a trim, you're going to want a drop hem. So in this case, I have a 3.5 inch drop hem. So the formula for the length, instead of adding 10 inches down to the lower half, I'm going to add 13.5 inches down below my finished length. So I'm going to add 6 inches for the top of my shade so I can wrap the board. So it's 6 inches plus the finished length of my shade, plus now to have a 3.5 inch drop hem look from the front, I'm going to add 13.5 inches to the cut length of my face fabric. And that is going to give me a 7.5-inch hem. So when this folds up, you're going to be folding up now 7.5 inches. So this is folded up 7.5 inches. I've trimmed away a little of the bulk from the side seams here, but it's still just turned under. This gets turned up twice so that the fold from here, the fold of the turned up edge is all lining up. And at this point, it's the same steps. You're going to stitch down the side. You're going to stitch across this bottom here, or the top edge of your hem. Go back up the other side, stitching. And at this point, you can stitch down one side. You can stitch this together. You can stitch this here as well. And then you take your weight bar. You're going to insert it again. And then you can stitch this up. You're going to put your hem grip on at this stage. So you've already stitched all that up. That's all stitched. Your hem grip is in place. And then I want to show you from this side. So the reason you might want that drop hem is if you have a shade like this, where you've got banding or trim on the lower edge, and when the folds come down, you want that trim to be exposed. So with the normal 8-inch spacing, when this shade comes down, now you're going to have a reveal of 3.5 inches. This is a 2-inch banding. This is a 1.5-inch reveal around the edges, setback. And what I suggest is, in order to determine what these dimensions are going to be, figure it out ahead of time on graph paper. Draw it all out. Know if you have a different type of applied trim. Know what the thickness of your trim is. Know what you want the inset to be. Know how much reveal you want, so that you don't have a 3.5-inch drop hem and just a little bit of trim on this bottom edge. It might look a little odd. You might want this a little bit shorter. So basically the formula to have a shade like this, where everything is flush, this you're adding 10 inches to the bottom. So if you want a drop hem reveal anywhere, it could be any dimension that you want. This one is 3.5 inches. If you want it only to be 2 inches, then instead of the 10 inches for the flush mount, this is flush, you're going to add 12 inches if you only want a 2-inch reveal. This one is a 3.5-inch reveal, so I've added 13.5 inches. So that's the calculation that you're going to make, and I strongly encourage you to draw it out on graph paper. Know what size, if you're making your own banding, know if it's going to be a 1-inch banding, a 1.5-inch banding, a 2-inch banding. Is it going to be inset like this all the way around? If it's just a border trim, then you'll know that. And likewise, you can calculate what kind of reveal you want. So from the front, see, it will look like that. From the back, it looks like this. So you have to keep in mind that the longer that hem is, the further up this piece is going to go. So just keep that in mind. Use the formula. And I highly recommend that when you're doing any shades with a drop hem like this for a reveal, all the other folds will stack up to this one on top. But I highly suggest that when you do this kind of style, that you sketch it on paper so you know exactly how much you need to add for this drop hem and how much you want it actually to drop and how much you want to show. And that's how you do an advanced fabrication technique with a concealed hem grip. And this is where your rings are going to be here going up the shade.
Judy, am I moving on?
Yep, next slide. So in these next two slides, I'm going to show you, the first one is a sped up version of how I do the actual hand stitching of all three of those layers. And you'll kind of see the zigzag pattern that I do going up and down. And then the second video is about 3 minutes long. And I'm just going to have Chris play the soundtrack that came on to it. But here you're going to see sort of in real time me stitching through all these layers. So you can sort of get a clearer picture of what it's like to stitch that down. And what I'll say about the audio on the second clip is that I was listening to a podcast, which I often do, called Business of Home, which I find quite interesting. And the first part of the discussion on the clip is not totally relevant. It's talking about shelter magazines and getting published. But the second half, you might be interested in hearing what they have to say about marketing through social media. So it's just kind of a side note, something to listen to while we're just watching me stitch. Okay.
That there's a lot of people come in, and although their goal is to build a studio that suits them, they do ask the question. They do say, I would really like to be in Elle Decor. I would really like to be in Architectural Digest. We do ask them why. What exactly are you looking to get out of that? Is it, do you think that you'll get more clients? Are you looking for recognition from your peers in the industry? So we do have a point of view and quite frankly, and a data-driven understanding that there are places that designers do better in terms of attracting potential clients. And those places tend to be the places that high net worth to ultra high net worth people are interacting with. For example, we prefer How to Spend It in the Financial Times or Off Duty in the Wall Street Journal or T Magazine. We've seen clients get more inbound traffic out of a one paragraph mention about stair runners in the New York Times than we have clients who have had a 15-page editorial in Architectural Digest. So one is, where are you? I think that a lot of people are super focused on the legacy shelter publications. I think to some extent it's kind of inside baseball. So getting into these other magazines, which, or papers, which is something that we work with clients on, is one aspect of it. But the most important thing that people can do is talk about what they do. Fundamentally, what people are looking for is to connect with somebody else on a human level. And for that to happen, it's not a bunch of static posts on your grid on Instagram. It's you talking about why you do what you do and why you like it, which is most easily expressed for designers as talking about design. talking about chairs, talking about why you prefer a banquette instead of a chair at a dining room table, talking about your theory on color, talking about any number of things. So we think that that's really what moves the needles when people start developing a voice that people can interact with. We know that reels on Instagram attract more non-followers, and to go down the social media rabbit hole. This is coming from somebody who's not on social media. The firm is, but I don't run.
Right. No. I know it's not a place you spend a lot of time, but your clients are spending a lot of time, and it sounds like you're telling them to spend more time talking to the camera and making reels and having a point of view.
Yeah, chime in from a job site if it's not an NDA job, or talk about a piece of furniture, or talk about an auction and what you like there, or theory, any of these things. And the reality is that these reels will attract more non-followers, and if you post with a regular cadence, at least 2 times a week, then the algorithm will start to pick you up more and put you in front of more non-followers. I think people make the mistake of thinking that the number of followers they have is indicative of what their future business success is going to be. But the truth is that anybody who's already following you, they already know about you. They are either going to hire you or they aren't going to hire you. I'd say the vast majority of them are just interested in design and aesthetics and are following you because they're interested in your work.
And that was the end of that one. So you can go to the next slide.
There's
forward to the next. Yeah, there we go.
One? No. Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Did you miss one? No, I think you're good. So for further information about concealed hem grips, we did post 2 blog posts on our site, and you can use a search bar feature on our site on a couple different pages. The home page, the blog post page, and maybe the FAQs has a search bar. So if you put in concealed, if you just put in concealed or concealed hem grip or just grip, it's going to give you, once this video is posted, it'll also link to this Zoom video, which we'll have posted on our site. And then you can also find these 2 blog posts in there. So if you're ever looking for information on something that we've covered or we've talked about in a blog post and you're not sure where, this is just a reminder that you can use the search bar feature on our site, and you can go back and find it. So now we have Lynn Scott's version, and we just pulled out the text. I wasn't sure if she'd be on this call. She is on this call, so we're going to play her video, and then, Lynn, we can open you up. I didn't take questions from mine, so I don't know if we want to do questions at the end, or Lynn, yours is kind of, mine I thought seems pretty straightforward, but Lynn, there might be questions on yours, so it'd probably be best to open up and have you address questions after we see this video.
This is my method for the bottom of a Roman shade when I use the Centurion widget. I add 14 inches of face fabric so that it goes up and folds back down. The 4-inch wide piece of stiffener is in here, and I lay it in first. And then I top stitch 2 rows here for my weight rod, which is a flat bar. And then I top stitch here on this piece for my 5/8 inch oak dowel that I insert. And you can pull this down. It doesn't bow, and it's very sturdy. My designer prefers this over the plastic pull. Also, I do a permanent fold on the front of my shade, and it covers up the top stitching and the weight rod, so you don't ever see all this. So anyway, that's the method in my workroom.
And Lynn's on, so anyone who's got questions, or Lynn, if you want to talk a little bit about how you came up with that, I don't know.
I've always put my weight rod right where the row rings are. And that's how I came up with doing it that way. And like I said, the permanent fold covers up the top stitching. I think that the weight rod being at the row of rings stabilizes it when they go to push it up. And I'm just trying to think. It also allows me to use another thing besides that dowel. If I have a smaller shade, I can use the little pull ring because the whole area down there is stable. It doesn't affect the shade going up wobbly like on the left or on the right. So I mean that's the only thing I would add. I'm gonna look at a method so that I may only have one row of top stitching that shows through, but I've never had any complaints, even on a flat shade, without a permanent fold for there being any top stitching showing. It's just the way I've done it for 34 years, and so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So anyway, that's it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
This is my method.
Sorry. Missed one.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm not seeing
one,
I'm not seeing your shades, but we can
That pull ring was mine.
That pull ring was. And you know what, Chris? I'm wondering if you pulled the saved PowerPoint that I did yesterday.
I don't know.
I'm thinking you didn't because I put all of Mary's.
What would you like to do? Would you like Mary to talk about hers
Okay.
while I find the other PowerPoint?
If you want to, yeah. I mean, would it have automatically saved while I was working on it?
Okay, well, you guys talk for a minute and I'll go look for Judy's
I can talk.
version of the PowerPoint.
Oh, there she is. All right, we gotcha.
I can talk. So I set up a little bit here. I hope we can see. My camera's not that great, but hopefully it'll work. So I do, similar to Lynn, I always do a permanent fold at the bottom of my shades. So I'm going to have to lift this up a little bit so you can see. That's the permanent fold. So it hides this little grip that I've sewed. And mine, I'm going to turn it sideways so you can see this is stiffened with 2 layers of Skirtex. And then the weight bar is sewn right at the top of that. And that grip is sewn in with that line of stitching. So like Lynn's, her pull is on the back and my pull is on the front, but it's all hidden. And in this tab, I found it helpful. I usually sew in a piece of this fiberglass rod so that your client really can tell and feel that's what you should pull on. And it doesn't, I don't take it all the way across the shade unless it's a wide shade, and then I'll take it wider and longer so they have 2 grip points. But this one, I think I made about 9 inches. It's a pretty small shade, so you can just, and boy, did I mess up this widget system when I was making this, let me tell you. So it's crooked and it's not, but anyway, it works for now. My fault, not the system.
Great, thank you, Mary. Did anyone have any questions? And I'm sorry because I had Mary's photographs queued up.
We'll put them up on the.
Yeah, put them after.
Yeah,
we'll put them out. We'll probably create like an FAQ or something that's with concealed hem grip, or we might actually make an education page where we start categorizing this information. Putting it in a library. So. Did anyone have any questions about any of those methods? Does anyone use another way of doing a concealed grip?
I have the my little ring
Oh, yeah.
pull here.
There you go. So Lynn, you don't find the slack like between the dowel or that ring, you don't find that that interferes with pushing up? I can see where pulling it down, it wouldn't matter if it was slack, but when you're putting
No,
it
I
up,
have
you don't feel it?
the stiffener's actually on the front of my shade, not in the grip area. So there's the shade isn't affected at all. And like I said, because the weight bar, that flat weight bar, is literally at the row of rings, nothing wobbles or, I mean, there's just no way for it to be distorted.
Yeah, it's stable. But that
Yeah.
little bit of the looseness of the fabric between, so I guess when you're pulling up on the dowel piece, that's going to go towards the top of the shade. You're just pulling all of that fabric and all of that bar up.
Well, when I raise the shade, it's like what you've done in your demos. I mean, I just like go over to it with my hand and just raise it like that. And I don't really grip the dowel to raise the shade.
So you
Okay.
just grip the bottom of the stiffener and all the
and it just
bottom
goes
end.
up, you
Yeah.
know. And I have been in all of the shades I've done so far, and it was kind of an accident. I used the aluminum rods, not steel rods. I'd always used the Rolly round rods, and I got out of that just because I didn't like the way they looked once I started using the flat rods. And I haven't had any issues with not having enough weight in the for the tension of the shade with any of those shades down at the ones that I did at that beach house. Except for one 12-inch wide shade. I did not have enough weight in that shade at the bottom to keep the shade down. It rose about 2 inches. Yeah. So I cut a piece and gave it to the homeowner, and she just slid it in because I left the one end open, and it works fine. But all of the other shades I did, they were anywhere from 30 to 54 inches wide. I just used the flat aluminum weight rod. You can get it Lowe's, Home Depot, any of the other vendors that sell them.
Yeah, we generally, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, aluminum, the weight of the fabric, the combined weight of everything on the shade will typically keep it down, and it won't bounce back at the bottom, which is how we describe it when people pull it down and it kind of retracts a little bit. But there are some, and you just gave an example with a very light shade, light fabric, or a small shade, like a 12-inch shade. In our case anyway, the widget is pulling harder than all that fabric can resist, and that's when we usually suggest we'll just add more weight in one way or another. Did you swap the aluminum bar for a steel bar for her, or did you just send her a second?
Well, I swapped it for since they had permanent folds, it didn't really matter if it was flat or not, and I just cut one of those Rolly
threaded rod
weight rods. Yeah. And also, I don't use ribs in my shades. I've never used a rib in 34 years, and I use the Centurion blackout lining from Angels, and it's thick, and so my shades stay folded and they don't droop or anything. So using that 2-cord widget is all I had to use on that 12-inch shade, and so it wasn't a very powerful spring or anything, but it still wouldn't stay down with just the aluminum. It was just one. The rest of them stayed down, and I had 6 that were 12 inches wide. So it was just that one. But it worked out. It's fine. It works now. She's happy with it.
Good. Judy, did you see Laura's question on ribs and shades? If they're glued in the lining, how does the top stitching work if you've got ribs in those spots?
Do you use ribs in your shades? My ribs are glued to the lining, so any top stitching with ribs in place can be challenging. Laura, I'm not really understanding when you say top stitching, what you mean.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I unmuted myself. So I think I was looking at the other two methods. Yours obviously isn't an issue and I could do it, but I also, would feel better sometimes top stitching. But even when you go to top stitch, if you're using, I guess a different method, but once you get those ribs in, and then you have to take your big shade with those ribs over to your sewing machine and try to sew. And it looks like Lynn, you don't have that issue because you don't use ribs. I'm just trying to think. It's very difficult to try to sew, along a whole hem when you have all of your fabric and all these ribs because you can't fold your fabric under the machine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, when I shared my method, I don't do any machine stitching on it for that reason because I don't like to move things around. And when I've used ribs, I'll glue it to the lining fabric. But yeah, I'm not moving it to a machine. I understand what you're saying. So Lynn can probably address the stitching with ribs.
Not me. I don't use ribs.
Oh, right, because you don't use it on your body. So you're just, when you take it to the machine, you're only stitching casing. You're only,
Correct. And
yeah.
I've already done the side hems and I take it over to the machine. But also, I think I saw a method somewhere where they didn't even attach the they didn't top stitch or hand stitch all the way across like you did. They just, when they sewed on the rings, say there's 4 rows of rings, that's where the attach part was, and it was stable enough. I'm not comfortable with that. I'm always going to have some sort of stitching all the way across, but
So Lynn, your shades are always, and anybody that doesn't use ribs, then you are, when you're taking your stitch, I don't know if you use ladder tape or rings, but when you stitch everything together, you are stitching all the way from your lining. I use interlining too, and then your face fabric. So you literally are your rings are sewn on, or your points of tack with your ladder tape are through all those layers.
Yes.
So you have little stitches in the front.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But I hand stitch the rings. So
Yeah.
I use like four pieces of thread, and I go through up and down through the needle, through the point twice, through the holes twice. So it ends up being 8.
Okay.
And then I hand tie or either knot with the needle.
Alicia,
Okay.
did you want to pitch in on ribs? Are you muted? Don't know where she went.
Yeah, Alicia, you can unmute yourself if you're mute.
Sorry. Put on the video, but not the mute. So I do use ribs. And so I did Judy's method, but I did stitch that 2-inch pocket. I could have glued it or do fix it or something, but I also put a rib at the top of the hem like Elke or Rosemary Garner. So when I stitch my rings at the top of the hemline, I go all the way around the rib. So that really holds it together. I also put stiffener not only in the handle, but in the hem, because I've always put stiffener in the hem and I like it. So I put it in both places. So you really have a firm grip going up and down. Does that help? Did I explain it properly?
Yeah.
By stitching around that little rib, that really helps. That gives you another line across the whole
shade.
Yeah, it keeps it all locked together. And I've done a ribbed shade with black outlining before. And when I had to do my tack points, I made sure to just take that first tack just through a few layers of the face fabric. But then when my needle came back up, I sort of came up at a diagonal so that I was looping back around the side of the rib and coming back up. And then when I did subsequent tacks around the rib in that place, then I just went around the rib. But I made sure at least once it went through to the face fabric and then the rest of them just locked in around the rib. Because then I figured the rib is glued to the lining, everything's sort of tacked through at least one pass. Yeah.
Judy, on your method, when you have like, say, a 3-cord widget and you're bringing the ladder tape down in the middle, you said you sewed through the 3 layers but didn't come through to the face. When you're bringing that bottom where the brass ring is, do you attach that to all those layers and then also tack it through to the face, or is it only through the lining down there?
So when I'm stitching across that top hem,
Yeah.
I'm not going through to the face fabric,
Right.
but when I do the brass ring, I
Mhm.
am going through it at least one pass
Okay.
through everything. And I try and catch like all the folds, all
Mhm.
the layers. It's pretty thick, but I figure at least once. I usually do like a double knotted thread. So I take my needle down through everything, bring the needle back up, and then I go back through the knot, so that it's really secure there. And then I don't worry about hitting to the face fabric after that. I just kind of do it once,
Okay.
and then I will go 3 times around, but the next 2 times I usually will omit going through the face fabric at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. You can always put a little dab of glue on there. I had a question. It was an email that came up from a customer this week, and she was kind of in a panic because she normally does a 1.5-inch bottom hem. So she doesn't do like the 4-inch like we talk about. So she usually does a 1.5-inch bottom hem, and she had trim. So her rings were going to be, I don't know, I think she said like 7 or 8 inches up, or maybe 6 inches up from the bottom of her hem. And she didn't know where to put her weight bar. So I had suggested that she do that concealed hem as sort of an external weight bar with the hem stiffener in it. You just take a 5-inch piece of lining fabric, fold it in half, fold your skirt tacks in half to 2 inches, put your weight bar in there, and I just top stitch the lining down with my machine. When I've got the skirt tacks in it, I just top stitch it down. Then I'll slide in my weight bar and stitch up the other end. And then all I'm doing is, tacking that to where my brass rings are. That's the only place I need to attach it to the shade, is where the brass rings are. So I sort of talked her through that method because she had already cut her face fabric and didn't have enough to do sort of an integrated concealed hem grip on it. But that's always, keep it in your back pocket as a tip, because you can do that on any shade. It's basically the method that I use for relaxed Roman shades, where you have an external stiffener or weight bar on it. It's pretty much the same method.
Callie commented in the chat that she always has a rib in the back of the permanent fold and also stitches a way around that rib to the face. Those stitches don't show because they're under the permanent fold. I feel like those are sufficient to hold it, and she's never had any callbacks.
Yeah, that's a good trick there too. Put your structure in and have it concealed. I never do a permanent fold, so but that sort of, those permanent folds does give you a way to hide a lot of structure. And I like Lynn's idea of having that weight bar sort of up right under the rings, like they are in hers, where she does that pocket. So if you do a permanent fold, I think that would probably be a good technique to adopt. Any other questions? So I'm hoping that this technique sort of lets you elevate your shades a little bit. It sort of deals with the objection that people don't always like seeing the grip. I will say that I've done Roman shades for rental properties, and in those cases, I definitely want the grip visible because it's so interesting how other people seeing shades they're not intuitive about the fact that you can just push them down and pull them up. And I feel like at least with a rental property, if you can see the hem grip, then there's better chance that that shade is actually going to be used, raised and lowered properly. But most of the time, I would say almost all of my shades now have a concealed hem grip. And most of my shades don't have trim. So I can get away with just having everything flush, level to the bottom. In the Northeast, where we like to have as much open glass as possible, even though Roman shades don't always look pretty, all tucked up at the top of the window, it's nice to have that alternative when you are in the Northeast and you just don't get a whole lot of sunny days sometimes. It's nice to just be able to push everything up. That drop hem look, I know that a lot of people put that into their conventional shades, even if they don't have trim. I think it's a look that sort of, I think a lot of manufacturers put it into their shade styles. And it's a look that people sort of think is normal. But I guess I would challenge you, if you're going to do a dropped hem, do it with intention. So know why you're doing a drop hem. Like, are you going to show trim? Are you going to show a pattern on your fabric? That would be another reason to have a reveal like that with a drop hem, is if you wanted to show a decorative trim on your face fabric. But having that drop, to me, on a plain shade always looks a little bit odd. And I don't know, maybe it's just a style thing, insert a regional style. So I don't know what your experiences are with that, but I tend to calculate all that with each shade. We do custom, so we don't have to mass produce and have a one size fits all approach to our shades. So I'm hoping that kind of elevates your shades, deals with the objection that people don't always like to see that grip, and maybe gets you thinking creatively about where it goes. You just have to remember that wherever you're pushing and pulling the shade from, you need a horizontal, rigid grip area there. So either using Skirtex or using weight bars or a combination will always be successful.
Well, and I would just add that one of the reasons we went back to the double hem grips in the forecord was that people were using them, as they should, for heavier shades. And people were just struggling, users and clients were struggling with trying to raise it. They were saying, oh, I just can't lift it. And what we reminded them is you've built let's imagine a 60-inch wide shade or something like that. So, cue them to use both hands by putting two hem grips on it. And that at least will help with the problem. So that's the reason we went back to throwing two hem grips into the bigger widget kits. Anything else on hem grips? We're concealing them.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap up. Hopefully you found this educational, and share with us your photos, share with us your videos. We do appreciate when you collaborate on posts. If you collaborate, then your posts will go out to all of our followers as well without me having to sort of regenerate an original post. So it's always best if you tag us, that's fine, but tagging doesn't cross promote it it doesn't push it out to all of our followers. I have to sort of recreate my own post in that case. But if you just collaborate with us, then it'll automatically go out to all of our followers. And I'll say that we are up to about 10,000 followers right now on Centurion Roman Shades, and it's growing every day. It sort of grows exponentially. and we do have followers all over the world now. We get interest from South Africa and India. We are shipping to the UK and Canada, and we get people from New Zealand and Australia that are also interested, and of course throughout Europe. So it's just always fun to sort of collaborate and to hear what other people do in other countries, other cultures. So the follower base that we're getting is quite broad and very international now. So
even in the U.S., who was you don't have to name the name, but somebody shared something with you and sort of ended up with 4,000 views of her shade or something like that, of what she did.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So when you share, you'll see an increase view. You'll see increased views. And I will say, if you're going to create a post like that little clip, which is why I wanted you to hear that clip, the reels are actually what attract new followers. So if you're interested in getting new followers, then I would suggest that you put your location in, because that'll concentrate your post going to people in your general vicinity and your location, and also create reels. And like you said, twice a week is probably good. Reels get higher priority in the push out there for content. And if you have a face, even if it's just, you can do a sped up version of you doing a stitch technique or something. If it has your image in it, could be from the side, doesn't really matter. That will get priority over any of the still photo posts. Those will have limited traction over a reel. So reels are great. And
the point is, if you're using social media as a way to get new customers, then this is all relevant. If you're not, then it may not be such a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, I do think in this climate, why not? I think it can't hurt, and you never know where the jobs are going to come from. Through Insta, I got a local job that's working with a designer in Minnesota, and it's been a wonderful project. So you just never know, and she would have only probably found me through Insta. You just never know who's going to find you and what project's going to come around next. And certainly if you're putting out cordless shades, that still seems to be a niche and very in-demand window treatment. So, you don't have to post all your swags if you don't want to keep doing swags. But if you want to do more Roman shades, I would say create some little reels and pump those out, and you'd be amazed the interest that you'll get for people looking for shades. So next month, like I said, April 8th is our Q&A, second Wednesday of April. Bring your questions. You can email ahead of time. If you ever are stuck, you can always reach out to us ahead of time. May 13th, like I said, we're going to talk about hobbled shades. And between now and May, I will have a 15-part series coming out to make your own hobbled shade in 15 easy steps. I hope they are easy, and I'm hoping they're going to probably start publishing sometime in March, and it'll go consecutively for 15 days. One step will post each day for 15 days. So look for those. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then you'll get notification of when those come up. And I'm hoping that between the publication of that series for a hobbled shade and May, that you actually make a little hand sample of it for yourself so that we can talk about them. And I will say a hobbled shade is never anything I ever wanted to do. I never designed it. I talked people out of it. I made one once in the early 90s, and I said never again. It was a horrible experience, and I think a lot of people have trauma around hobbled shades. But I've got a method that I'm really happy about. I'm looking forward to doing more hobbled shades with this method, because I just think it's kind of an autopilot thing. Like if you just go step by step, I think you'll enjoy it actually. And it results in a really pretty soft fold shade. It is a way, if you are into selling fabric, you're going to sell more fabric with it because it uses about twice as much linear length than a flat shade. So I highly recommend it. And I have a collaboration. I'm just going to tease that I have a collaboration coming out with a printed fabric that I'm hoping gives an interesting effect with a hobbled shade. So that's what I kind of want to talk about in May. Hopefully I've got that collaboration together. And yeah, so we'll talk about hobbled shades and hopefully you'll try them out in the meantime. So that's it. We are at 12:59.
Good time management. Let everyone get back to work.
Time to get back to work. Make your shades. Yep. So thank you all for